Michael Gomez, and I'm a real estate broker and an investor here in Nashville, Tennessee.
And I'm Seth Mosley, Grammy Award-winning songwriter and real estate investor.
We host a monthly meetup in Middle Tennessee for anyone who wants to build passive income, not only for retirement, but for today.
On the first Wednesday of every month, we bring in an expert from every area of investing to help you with things like finding deals, getting your financing locked in, asset protection, every kind of investing, so much more.
Our videos are all about delivering that content to you.
Go to musicandmoneyig.com for more info on our free monthly events. Hit subscribe on the page so you don't miss any awesome content, and hit that like button if you like it.
Don't let all the flair of my jacket distract you.
Here's the content. All right, well, without further ado, all the way from Kansas City, the CEO of Bridge Turnkey Investments. He's flipping over 150 houses a year, and he's going to be delivering a talk on creating systems and processes for your business and investing. A nice Nashville welcome for Nathan Brooks. Woohoo! There you are. Yes, sir. Clicker. Thanks, my friend.
Good morning. Man, I have been to a lot of meetups over the years. I've never had to get up at 6 a.m. to get to one. So I was like, man, are these guys? So I played music professionally for many years as well. And I'm like, man, so you're going to play till 2 a.m. and then you're going to come here at 8 a.m. But it's a great pleasure to be here. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity from Seth and everyone. So I am in town from Kansas City and native Kansas Citian. And I'm not sure which slide you're on. There we go. So who am I? Dad, husband, real estate investor. I do coaching. I love to write. I write for Bigger Pockets and other things. And I played music professionally for many years, including being worship leader in Kansas City. And I train MMA 4 or 5 times a week. I love doing it. And recently bought a 11-acre property. And I love running the tractor, cutting down the myriad of trees on my property, and trying not to cut my arm off. So just wanted to give you a little family love. So this is my family. We're big KC Royals fans. This is my son, Colin. And this is my lovely daughter, Grace. And the family, if anybody, I'm sure you're not Royals fans here, right? Okay. I might keep talking about him for a little while longer, but we won the World Series, so this was before we, there's a really neat picture in Kansas City when like 1 million people literally went downtown in Kansas City after we won the World Series a couple of years ago, and so we were fortunate to run down there and actually be a part. And then my son Colin sporting a little Bridge gear, daughter Grace sporting a little Bridge gear, and as we think about the things that we're doing, and I'm talking about processes, but you'll soon find out I'm not that great in processes, but I've learned how important they are. And I think a lot of times as visionaries in our companies, or no matter if we have employees or we're just sitting right at the start, the precipice of what our goals are, it's hard to sometimes vision. But I knew about 10 years ago what my home looked like, and this is the patio, the back of my house. And it's a 12-foot fireplace, and I always knew what my space looked like. And as we're thinking about this today, and there'll be a few different prompts, but I really want you to think about what that looks like for you and in your life, right? It's not just about money. It's not just about, riding the Lambo or whatever it is that's on your vision board, which is cool. I'm a Porsche guy, really, but not a Lambo guy. But I want you to really think about it. And we learn in science that when we create things in our mind, whether they're positive or negative, they become something. And so whatever it is in your life that you're thinking about, I hope that you every single day are intentional about that. And last but not least, I had to show you a picture of my tractor. I don't have a name for it. If you have some ideas, I will take it. But it's just a blast. So why am I here? I'm here because I've had a fundamental, incredible life change because of real estate. And it has fundamentally changed my life. It's changed my ability to, the way I live, the way, what I get to do in my life, my income, and the life that I actually live. And so I know and believe, and I have the Millionaire Real Estate Investor book. If you've ever read it, it's a great book, sitting in my bedroom, and I see it all the time, and at the top of it, it says something to the effect of, anyone can do it, ... will you? Anyone can do it. I'm not that smart. I didn't go to some fancy school, and there's a bunch of people who've been successful. So it's not about whether you have the right, amount of money. It's not about whether you have the right school. None of that crap matters, right? You have to go do the work, and you have to want it, and you have to be clear on what that means. So I started in real estate in 2007. The first day I bought a house, I literally bought two. I'd never done any real estate before. I didn't know anything about real estate. I was just working at a guitar shop playing music, literally. So what was the target? That's a great question. I literally didn't know anything about real estate. I didn't know what the deal was, didn't have any money, didn't have any experience, no idea, right? So I show up, and I literally couldn't have told you what the return on investment was. I couldn't have told you what the value of the property was. And I bought two houses that day. It's a really, really good idea. Don't do that. Okay, so let me just show of hands. I can only see you. Nobody else can. Who's made a decision like that? Oops. Yeah, how'd it go? Yeah, that sounds about right. So and I don't know if you can tell, but those are leaves right here, and it's just kind of the money, So that's pretty much what I did. The only constant thing, and really I still kind of do this, ready, fire, aim, but I've now have people in my life who can help temper that or process that. And if you don't have those people in your life right now, you better find them. And you better trust him. And my business partner has been incredible, and I'll tell you more about him. But I had no clear vision, no set goals, no understanding. I just knew I wanted to change the direction and trajectory of my life. And so, sometimes we have to jump into things, and that is wonderful. Sometimes you have to take that leap, and you have to actually make a decision that you're going to do something about it, which is important. Just don't do that. So just a few of the screw-ups. I was sitting at lunch with my wife in a restaurant that no longer exists in Kansas City. Bless you. And I literally overheard a guy talking about real estate and investing in real estate. And not unlike any other time in my life, I went over and I'm like, hey, dude, you do real estate? He's like, yeah, I do. And like 3 weeks later, I bought a house with this guy. He's my business partner. And then he stopped showing up to work. And every Friday he would show up to get paid. So he's the construction guy, and he was the one who was supposed to help me learn exactly how to do the actual, buying, renovating, and selling the property. And so it didn't go very well, as you can imagine. I literally bought other properties. They had Section 8 tenants in them. Day it closed, I showed up, and the lady was literally moving out. And the last one here, of course, I will never forget. I was literally walking to this property. The tenant was supposed to move in of these 3 properties, and walked to the back door. It's been kicked in. I'm like, okay, great. This is awesome. So I begin walking downstairs, and I have this incredibly strong odor. And I'm walking down the stairs, and all of a sudden I realize it's the smell of natural gas. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not good. I walk downstairs, all the copper's cut out, the HVAC's cut out, the hot water tank's cut out. The water's pouring on the ground, literally if you imagine like a horror movie. They peed in the corner and left a rag, and they left the gas on. And so thank God I wasn't a smoker, because I'd be boom, and I would no longer be here to tell you this story. So I haul it through the garage, open up the door, and the fire department shows up with literally 2 fire trucks and the chief of whatever they are, and and it's a complete nightmare. So again, it's amazing when I look back at all the really dumb things I've done in real estate, and how the opportunities still present themselves, and you're gonna screw some stuff up, and that's okay. But the less you can do of that, and the more you can find people like myself or like Seth in groups like this where you can connect with people who have been there and done that. There's incredible podcasts, incredible people, incredible, like Bigger Pockets is an example. So as you can imagine, things were completely out of control in my life and in my real estate world. And I'm not sure how many of you were doing real estate in 2009, 2010. But my wife and I literally in the same week filed for bankruptcy and had a miscarriage. And it was chapter 7. It's literally when you ever played Monopoly? You take all your Monopoly pieces and you get to shove them right back. That's what chapter 7 is. So we lost $1 million worth of real estate. And, I'm sitting at the table with this lady who's trying to find out any item that I own that's worth anything that they can take from me to give to creditors who want their money. As you can imagine, it's a pretty miserable place to be. I never want to be there again. Never want to be there again. And to look at my wife and to have that experience was an incredibly painful thing. And at the same time, it's been something that it's a seed that was planted that was a reminder I will never be here again. I will never be here again. I don't want to experience this pain. I don't want to set it up to fail. I don't want to have things in place that don't actually make sense. So we had two choices. We could either quit or we could try again. And I remember looking at my wife, who's pretty practical, and I'm like, hey, we had all these experiences, all these lessons, lost all this money, went through all this pain. There's no freaking way we are not going back after this. She's like, really? Really? Yeah. Yeah, really. I was like, no, there's no chance. I love this quote. Success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm. And I have a blessing and a curse. I don't remember much. I don't have a lot of memories, and this is an honest, true thing. And I think it's a blessing in this case because I did not have to actually keep coming back and suffering through that experience again. I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure this out. So I continued to do some real estate stuff, continued to do some JVs, got to speak, do Bigger Pockets and those kind of things. But it was still not really that dialed in. And here's just a couple of the oldie but goodies, just so I wasn't totally lying. That's just a big picture of my ear. I think I was doing something in little guitar action. So I was still playing, I really wasn't committed. I really wasn't committed to what actually was going to happen. So 2015 was kind of the defining point in my real estate career in my life as far as that's concerned. And I met my business partner, David, and we established our company, Bridge Turnkey Investments, September of 15. So we will celebrate the beginning of our 5th year of business here shortly. And so when we originally got together, we kind of were the yin and yang, right? If anybody has read the book Traction, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, but they talk about a visionary and integrator personality. Has anybody read that book? It's an awesome book. If you haven't read it, and if you have a business partner, both that and Rocket Fuel are fantastic books. Definitely write that down, or there'll be a photo you can take momentarily. But he really brought that high detail. He brought that understanding of the numbers down into the numbers. So we got into business to buy and hold rentals. So that was the goal. We thought about, hey, we want to just keep buying, and we want to rent them out and build a big portfolio. And we bought 12 or so properties the first year of business. Guess what? We're still all over the place. And we did around 12 deals the first year. We did 32 and change was kind of the last section of 15. We did like 30 some in 16. We did 70 something in 17. We did just shy of 100 last year. But we finally, we did property management, we did turnkey, we did fix and flip, we did all kinds of these high-end retail. We just didn't really have our niche solved. So all of a sudden, I believe it was August of 2018, we said, all right, who are we? Who are we? We are a turnkey company. What do? We buy, renovate, and sell homes to investors who want to invest. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it means you have to say no to everything so you can say yes to one thing. I hate that so much. I want to do all kinds of crazy stuff. I want to go buy all kinds of different stuff. I want to invest in all kinds of things. But you know what? He was right. So guess what? We have a staff of 10 at this moment now. We'll do 15 million in sales plus in 2019. We'll do over 150 fix and flips. And you know what? Every single one of those properties are the same type of property with the same type of renovation and the same type of management. And you know what a difference that's made? It's an incredibly different thing. Because guess what? We know what comes out of the factory. And we have a target of owning 300 plus doors in the next 5 years. And the big, hairy, audacious goal is twofold. It is to own $250 million of real estate in less than 20 years. And it's to have a philanthropic charity that's over $1 million based out of that. And it's to give 10% of our company away to our staff because we build wealth and freedom through real estate for ourselves, we do it for our clients, and then we want to do it for our team. So, you know, it's amazing when you start to actually have that clarity and have that purpose and have that goal at which you're searching for, and what a difference that makes in the way that you approach your business. Can you relate to that? Does that make sense so far? Yes, maybe so? I'm just boring. Just take a nap up here. All right, so I'm talking about creating process in your business and thinking about what that actually means. And you better believe you cannot flip 150 houses without having process. It's really hard to have, flip 50 houses or 30 houses without process. And it evolves over time. I'm going to read this quote to you. It's Michael Gerber. Anybody read this book, E-Myth? Whew. I remember when I read this book, it was like a big kick in the face. Like a reminder, like, oh, you're going to just go hire somebody and you're calling them your, assistant. And then you're just going to expect them to do whatever it is that you wrote down without training them or teaching them what to do or how to answer the phone. So organize around business functions, not people. Build systems within each business function. Let systems run the business and people run the systems. Think about that again. Let systems run the business and people run the systems. People can come and go, but the systems remain constant. Man, I tell you what. So oftentimes, how many people think about like, I want to go hire somebody and I want that A player or I want that rock star. You guys think about it like that? And I have too. This was a game changer for me because when you think about how many rock stars work at McDonald's, you can throw out a number. Sonic? Maybe one manager. Applebee's. Not many, right? They have a system. They have a system that runs. It's incredible when you think about how simple can we make it? How simple can we make it that our people, like my acquisitions guys this morning, can go look at a house in Kansas City this morning. I've never seen it. I've never walked it. I've never looked at it. But I know that we can buy it. I know that we put it under contract. And I know within a few days we can pay cash and close for it. I've never seen it. We do it all the time. I buy 10 or 15 houses, 20 houses a month. That's how that's solved. So I put this up here. Being an entrepreneur is just sexy language for having a terrible paying job with a great idea behind it, usually. And I wanted that as a reminder because I think all the time too, we talk about having a business. We don't have a business without this. It's not a business. It's a job. And sometimes, a lot of times, it's a freaking nightmare, right? I see some smiles. It's a nightmare. It's sexy to be like, I'm a real estate investor. And it is. It's fun, believe me. And I think that's why we're here, right? So don't forget, it's a job until you have the things in place that you understand what you want to do. And guess what? So let's dig into it. What do you need to have? What are the things that come in the way of creating that system, creating that opportunity, creating the understanding of going from having an idea, right? So we have the idea, and then we have kind of the ready, fire, aim, and then we have the, oh gosh, maybe we understand how to do this a little bit, and then we dig into it a little bit further, right? And we start to understand what the challenges are of that. And so on here, I put direction, vision, core values, leadership, clear processes, and then data to verify and understand what's actually happening. So first, direction, vision. I want to think about this for a second, where the clearer you are with where you're going, the clearer, how many people in here have employees? How many people in here want to have employees? Is that pretty much everybody? Is there anybody that does not want to have employees? I don't blame you. I didn't mean that. I'm sure my team's watching and they're like, yeah, good job, Nathan. The clear the vision was when we started actually talking to our team about this. It's been incredible, the difference, the transformation of what it looks like when our people actually understand what the heck we're trying to accomplish. And then when you go from what the heck you're trying to accomplish to actually put it into context into what their job means and what they're doing, it is a life-changing and business-changing choice. So I love this book. If you have not read it, you should take a picture of it and you should go buy it. And you should go listen and / read it. Clarify your vision, and you will make better decisions about people, processes, finances, strategies, and customers. So traction was kind of a fundamental shift in our business, and we had joined a real estate mastermind, and we started reading through this book, and it gave us a lot of language between that visionary and integrator personality and understanding not only who is responsible for what, but who's leading, managing, and holding people accountable. And we had to have a clear vision first for that. And then from having a clear vision, we were able to actually lead, manage, and hold people accountable to that. Does that make sense so far? So what is your business goal? And I like, anybody in here journal? I started a journal practice, and this has really helped me a lot also with the manic mind and all the ideas, and really making sure that it was clear, first of all, to me. And I like to break these down into 3 things, really. I like to break it down into business, family, and personal. And what do those things actually manifest themselves in my own life? So, for instance, personal would be I'm getting up at XYZ time. I'm getting to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. I feel good, personally, or in my family. I'm dating my wife. I am playing and hanging out with my kids. We have specific vacation time. Does that make sense, right? So all these things are derived from my business, right? Because if I'm not making any money, it's very hard to relax and go enjoy that time. It's very hard to go take that family on a vacation. It's very hard to do amazing things for your company. And then I think this is fundamental. And as you can tell, I'm a book guy, and I keep talking about books. But anybody in here read Go Giver? You read Go Giver? If you haven't, I would put that one down too. And it's a wonderful story about how important it is that we actually, you give away, and the intent, the concept is that you give away, and what you give away, more comes back, which of course can be a biblical theme as well. But I see it over and over actually happening in the real life. And so for our company as well, and for me personally, I literally want to give away $1 million a year before I'm dead, personally. And if I can make all this money, it doesn't matter if I don't do something good with it. And so having a purpose is important beyond yourself. So what is the vision of your business? So this is something, and I want you, if you don't have this written down, or you do but you're not clear on it, as you're starting to think about these things, make sure you write it down today, because there's quite a few slides and thinking about what your business will actually look like. And make sure you write it down. Put it in your Apple Notes, or write it on your notepad, put it in your journal, and go back to it. And make sure that you actually you have a business partner, you have your team. So I love this line. What does it look like when it's built? You know what that does? Anybody tell me? What does that question make you do? It's clarity. What else? You reverse engineer it, but there's also, it makes you give it finality to what it might look like. It doesn't mean that you can't change it, right? But it also makes you actually say, what is the purpose of this business, right? So forever, am I just going to add more units a year that I'm going to flip? So eventually I'm flipping 7,000 houses a year? Or do I need to do that? What purpose does that serve for my company? What purpose does that serve for my intention? What purpose does it serve for my staff? Do I have to literally have 2,000 people to run my business? You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So this was a really hard thing for me to reconcile with, because I was just like, let's go. I want to go. I just want to run. I want to run hard and just have fun and get after it. But I actually recognize that the clarity and the simplicity of actually having a goal and understanding what it looks like gave us something to run after, and it also gave us something that we could actually get around. Does that make sense? So, without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. So we actually look at this in our company all the time, and we started and realized that when you have core values that circle those things, right? So we've set up the vision. You see where we're going at least? Does this make sense? We set up the vision of where we wanted, of who and where we wanted to be. And then what we realized we were missing in our business was these core values that actually bring us together. How many have core values, written core values in your business? That's pretty good. Have you seen a change having core values written in your business? It's incredible. So core values appel and attract people. So you say, man, I love cheese and beer. You're gonna attract, well, I like cheese and beer too. Or pizza. I mean, everybody can get around pizza, right? But core values literally repel and attract people. And as you have a culture, and as you have a group of people who understand that and live in that, over time, they attract those people too. And you hire, fire, promote based on those core values. And that is also talked about in that Traction book. So again, back to that Gino Wickman book. It's so vital. They define the who, right? This is who we are. And I'll show you ours. Leadership, generosity, integrity, and drive. And core values come from the visionary of the business. The visionary, the CEO, the person who started it, right? The core value. So what happens is a lot of times, and this is what we did the first time we did our core values, was we said, well, core values, honest. That sounds good. I'm honest. I like to be honest. And we just started throwing words against a wall that we liked, which sounds good enough, right? Well, that's actually not the process. We hired a business coach, and that business coach helped starting us through a process of thinking about people we admired, people who we looked up to, people that we wanted to be like. And that's how we were able to suss those core values out. And we did that as a staff. We wrote them on the wall, as you can imagine, like having 74 giant Post-it notes all around the room, and we had all these words everywhere. And we had to suss them down into leadership, generosity, integrity, and drive. And let me tell you what, Once we are clear on our core values, literally everything changed. Because we had clarity of focus, but we kept hiring people. How many people have hired a bunch of people and then had to fire a bunch of people? Okay, I have. It's brutal. It sucks. I cannot tell you the number of people we hired and then fired, and I could not figure it out. I'm like, you look at their resume, seems great. You look at their experience, they seem great. You look at what they've done, or said to you, right? Seems great. This was the problem. And what we actually recognized in our business was the drive component was the one that we missed the most. Because we could get somebody who wanted to be a leader, and we are all about autonomy in our business at Bridge, but it was the drive component. And so guess what? We started talking about that in the process that we use to hire people. Crazy, right? And we have written interview questions that we use, and we have a written way. We bring them through the system now. And guess what? We started attracting more people, more like us, because we had written core values, and we wrote out about them what they meant in our business, and we explained to them what they meant to us. And in the interview, we said, hey, these are our core values. How does this ring for you? What does it mean? It's made an incredible, incredible difference. And I'll just tell you, we're hiring for a director of operations position in our company right now. And for the first time in my life, so we posted this job ad last Monday, director of operations for Bridge Turnkey Investments. The goal of this position is to understand construction first and then go through each areas of our construction sales and acquisitions and transactions divisions of our business. We've had 71 applications in 1 week. And I have had the most incredibly talented, the most incredibly successful, I don't even understand how they're coming to us. I'm blown away, guys. I have goosebumps. It's insane. We had people running multi-billion-dollar companies leaving corporate America to apply for our job to come work for our little company. And you know why? Because it's clear. They get what they're coming in for. Because they could look at our website. It's congruent. They look at our Facebook page. It's congruent. They look at their CEO and leader in me, my group, the way I write, what I do. It's congruent. They talk to our team. They say the same thing. Look at that. It's actually working. The guy who hates processes, I love them. Because you know what? It's made an actual difference. I actually understand why now. Because I see it manifest itself in my business. So core values, they're internally facing, not externally facing. So if you do not have core values in your business, I am asking you to make a inner air pact right now. It's like from my hand to your hand through the air. I want you to go home tonight and this week, and I want you to make sure, first of all, you've written your vision down. It's a 1 year, this year, what does it look like? 3 or 5 years, and then the big, hairy, audacious goal. 10, 20 years, whatever. It's going to be tough. It's going to be weird. You're going to have a hard time. You're going to fight with yourself, and that's part of it. And you're probably going to be wrong, and that's what's okay. I hear the lawnmower now. I do. Is it Juan again? Was that who we're supposed to talk to? I'm sure they're doing a great job, so we'll just let them run and get out of the way. So go home and write down the vision. Go home and write down core values. And think about the people that you admire and look up to. Have a list of them. And then what's going to happen is it's going to become apparent that there will be multiple words that you use that actually have a very similar meaning. And so you can kind of put those multiple words into one word that means the most to you. And you don't want to have 52 core values. You want to have 3, 4, 5. All right. This is the next piece, is leadership. So we took the vision, we have core values, and then we look at what it actually means to be a leader, the CEO. And I love this John Maxwell quote. A leader is the one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Has anybody ever read the book Good to Great by Jim Collins? It's a fantastic book. And Jim Collins talks about a level 5 leader, and he talks about the leader sitting on the bus in the right seat, going the right direction, foot on the gas pedal, foot on the brake, understanding who's in each seat and what they're responsible for. And a leader is the one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. I'm going to tell you this story. So I was in Denver at my mastermind that I was talking about. And I was going through this book, and my literally Traction, my business partner and I are talking to each other, and we're thinking about all these problems we're having. And at the time we had property management in-house. Anybody in here in property management? I'm so sorry. Man, it's tough. Good luck to you guys. So we bailed on the property management ultimately, but property management was like this cesspool in my business. And we did not have leadership. We hadn't taken domain. We hadn't solved the vision. We hadn't solved the processes. And I rolled back in from Denver, and I sat my team down, and I literally said something to the effect of, guys, I have completely screwed this up. I used some other words too. I failed you. I literally have failed you. I have not taken my responsibility, and I have completely left you to fail, and it's my fault. And you know what? I had to literally tell them the truth, which was we've all suffered, including myself. I didn't even want to go to the office because I hadn't taken my responsibility seriously as the leader of my business, because we are responsible ultimately as the CEO and visionary of our company to set that tone. We are responsible for culture. We're responsible for leadership and setting the tone of what it actually means, from the top of the organization to the bottom. And ultimately, we ended up firing a lot of those people because they were not a cultural fit, because they were sitting in the wrong seat, but it was not their fault. It was my fault. And I think that when we start to think about those things in our business, and that it's not just, playing cards and we lose, it's somebody's life, and in their business and the way that they make their living. And I take that very seriously. And the more clear all those things that we've talked about to now, the clearer that we are, the more, with the less pain, first of all. We have not had to fire anybody. We've made several great hires over the last 12 to 18 months, and it has really worked out in a very different way. And again, we're only 4 years old. 4 years old, and I am new to this as well. And we screw stuff up. And we learn from it, and we get better. So is your team clear on the vision and goals now for your company? And I love this. So not only do we have to be clear on who we are and our goals, but we talk about it. So guess what? I was thinking about this, and I'm like, well, how can I influence this in a way that actually makes sense in my business? And if you're the only person in your business, holding a meeting of one, not that fun. So I understand that there's a different challenge, but that can be in meditation time, that can be in journaling time, that can be in talking to your friends and telling them about it, telling your spouse, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, and explaining. Because I saw everybody's hand. Nearly everybody in here wants a team. So leadership is complicated. And I'll give you two more books, Extreme Ownership and Dichotomy of Leadership by Jocko Willink. Has anybody heard of Jocko? He's an amazing author and black belt, former Navy SEAL commander, and he wrote these two books. And I didn't put the quote in here, but his line is, there's no bad teams, there's only bad leaders. That's a tough one. No bad teams, only bad leaders. And we are responsible to not only set those core values and set that culture, but we have to talk about it. And we have to actually explain what that means. As a leader, what is one practical thing you can do? Well, guess what? In my business, what that meant was every single week we have what we call leadership lunch. And I buy lunch for every single one of those people on my team. And we sit around the table at noon on Wednesday, and we hang out and we enjoy lunch together. We break bread together. We tell stories together. And then we do what's called personal and professional. We do this every time we start a meeting. Personal and professional good news. What's going on? Hung out and had baseball games this weekend. I'm pumped that 123 Main Street is rocking. It's been a difficult one, and it's finally out the door. And then we actually tell them what's going on in the business. We physically hand them a sheet that says, guess what? This is actually the numbers. Like, actually the numbers, guys. I'm not saying like sort of the numbers. Like, we actually made this much money as a company this month. Or we actually sold this many houses. Because we could start saying, okay, as a company, we have this vision. Here is our culture. These are our goals. And this is where we are on the line to actually achieve them. You think that maybe makes a little difference with your team? Maybe? It makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference because now they actually see what the target is and they see how their influence is to do it. So once we started to understand what those processes were, I'm going to read you this quote. If I had 1 hour to save the world, I would spend 55 minutes defining the problem and only 5 minutes finding the solution. What do you think he means by this? What do you think? Speak up. You can't have a solution if you don't know what the problem is. Exactly. That's exactly right. And so, instead of just trying to fire answers at people, we actually started making room for this in our business. So, I'll think of an example. So, on acquisitions, for instance, in our acquisitions department, we have pretty clear specifications, let's say the age of home, the type of property, the number of beds and baths, the square footage, the zip codes area, right? Does that make sense? So how can we take something in my brain and put it into a process? So in this case, we had 1 hour to save the world, spend 55 minutes defining the problem. So I'll show you a slide here. We use what's called Asana, A-S-A-N-A. And if you look up here, we literally have a core processes folder in Asana. And we have gone through literally every single thing. So if you can imagine what we do in a real estate business where we buy, renovate, and sell homes. So anything that we do in that business, we literally are writing. And I wouldn't say we have 100% of these done, but we are writing. We are actively doing them. And we're going through it. So we literally have a core process written, and I don't know how well you can see it, but here's a couple of them. Mentor onboarding for our meetup, partner onboarding, human resources hiring, transactions, selling turnkey, buying turnkey, wholesale, retail lists. So we're literally writing out those things where we have problems. And then to go back to this slide, we actually go through and talk to our team about it. And we say, how are we doing it now? And by the way, you have to have everybody that touches that. So even if you're in your business, and let's say you're like, well, shoot, I only have one employee, but I have all these other people, bring those people in. So if you're talking to you're not sure and you have your title person, well, go hang out and have a coffee or a beer with your title person and go work through your process for closing. Talk to them about it. What's working? What's not working? How are we doing it right now? So in Asana, and I think I have yes. So this is amazing. And again, I hate processes. It drives me crazy. And I have such a hard time sitting in there, all the detail, and then they want to write all the grammar properly. And I just want it to be done. And I want to go buy some more houses because it's fun. But I'm telling you, we walk out of this meeting with something like this, and we literally leave it in Asana, and I will move out of the way. We literally walk out of the meeting, and we have a written process. And you can literally see, and I don't know, can you guys read it from there? Can you actually read perfect. So literally, and you start at the top here, triggered notified by acquisitions of new buy-side contract. So we're clear at the start of this thing, and we're clear at the end of this thing. Where does it start and where does it stop and what's all the meat in between? So confirm transaction type, confirm deal source, confirm agent. So all the things that are in our back-end Podio system, which we use to track all our properties. And then, the coolest part about this is when you roll out of this meeting, you can literally print this sucker out of Asana. Guess what? Now we have a checklist. So this sits on the desk of our transaction coordinator. When we hire a new person, guess what? We don't have to go reinvent the wheel again. It's already written out. We've already looked at it. We've already run the process. And now we understand what it actually is. And you can get as much detail as possible in something like this where, it's hard necessarily to remember it off the top of your head, but now you had all the players involved and you could literally work through what it is. And then you can go back to it. So it's one thing to have the process, and then it's another thing to actually run it. And so this is the other thing about it, is that we started coming back to those same processes and making sure we're like, okay, guess what? You guys are going to go run this process, and 2 weeks later, we're going to come back and we're going to have the same discussion. We're going to make sure, did it actually make sense? And sometimes it works very well, and sometimes there's something that's not working at all. And what our assumptions were not correct. So guess what? We fix it, right? We fix it. And I think a lot of times we're so paranoid as leaders or investors or CEOs that our ideas were the only ideas, or our ideas were the right ones. And guess what? What I've learned is that whether it was in music or anything else, the absolute best player possible. I want to play with the best people. I want to have the best people on my team. And you know what that requires? It requires us to shut our mouth sometimes and listen. And in this moment, we want the people who are the closest to the problem to be the ones that are the most outspoken. And that comes back to our core values. Because if we don't value other people's opinions, we are not going to get them. Because we're going to shut them down, we're not going to listen, and we're going to continue doing the same thing. Insanity, right? So they must be reviewed, what's working, and then go back through them. And I actually just learned this recently. I had kind of put them together, that a process and a procedure, two very different things. So you have to understand the process, and then the procedure is to run it. Should have known that. But we have to run them, and we have to actually see them play. Just like your favorite sports team, right? They might know how to, baseball, you just swing the bat and you hit the ball and you run to the base. Well, go do it with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. You need to have the procedure. You got to practice your swing. You got to run to the base. So where do we do that? We do that in our level 10 meetings. And this is where the inception of learning what's happening in our business happens. So create a time and place weekly for the deep dive into what is actually happening. And again, if it's just you, spend an hour and go think about it. Or bring somebody in who's close to you in your business and do it. So we have a level 10 meeting for every division of our company. So that means transactions, acquisitions, sales and marketing, and construction. And it's a 90-minute meeting. It happens once a week. And we literally we have what's called an issues list. And so we say things we've heard from employees or other people, decisions we've made. Are there things that maybe not everybody knows about? What have we learned about? Have clients said something to us that maybe we're like, oh shoot, I hadn't heard that before. Now you have a place to actually talk about it and be all on the same page. It's very important. And so you go through that, and whatever those things are, whatever's not working, or opportunities you might see, new contractors in construction, or maybe a material management system our team's been working on, well, let's throw that idea against the wall. And then we do what's called IDS, identify, discuss, and solve. Does anybody run level 10 meetings in their business or something like it? Anybody? Ish? All right. So write that one down too. I hate meetings as well, and I don't really like processes that much, as I've already said. Guess what? You are missing the opportunity to lead your team. And I was on the phone with a friend of mine who's a wholesaler in KC a week or two ago, and he was telling me about all these problems he was having in his business and all these things that were not working. And believe me, I have those things too, so I don't act like I don't have problems. I like to have better problems. I like to have better problems every week. And he was just going through a number of things. I'm like, hey man, when was the last time you had your team on the same page? I'm like, when's your team meeting? He's like, we don't have one. Okay, well, you might want to have one. You might want to get your 5 or 6 employees or whatever it was on the same page. Because if you cannot identify them, how are you going to solve them? So I love this. So solving issues, we use the level 10 meeting for that, and we go through it. And my business partner and I, from the very beginning, at least we've been good at doing this, and we use that 80-20 rule. I'm sure everybody's familiar, right? Are you familiar with the 80-20 rule? So it's super simple. What's 20% of the things that we can do that will result 80% of, or that will have 80% of the result? What's the heavy lifter? Then another great word for it is leverage. Where's the leverage point in that we can actually use to make a fundamental change or fundamental shift? And just a caveat to that, it's also important to remember that over leverage also breaks things. So you want to be thoughtful in what you use this for. But we applied this in our business, and every single time, let's say, for a while we had construction was just a burning dumpster fire, and everything was broken. But we still had to solve the fundamentals of who are the contractors? What does the rehab look like? I mean, those are the big questions. And if you haven't solved that in your business, if you're a flipper, you want to know the kind of paint you're putting in. You want to know the kind of grout and colors and all that stuff. And those were the things we had to solve, because if we wanted to start with the end in mind, we were clear on what the vision was, right? I've talked about it 42 times to you already this morning. So we had to start there. And then in construction, in our world, it's a 90-day test. We don't even know how it's going to work until 90 days after. But we went back and looked at it. And then we can solve smaller things, and then smaller things, and smaller things that make a big impact, but you had to deal with the big ones first. And oftentimes it's those big hairy ones we avoid instead of actually going after them, looking at them, suffering in them sometimes, and then getting after it. So, and just as a reminder, this actually applies for everywhere in your life. 80-20 rule. You're having trouble, you want to lose weight, you might look at the nutrition first, even before you look at the workout or your water intake, right? There's all kinds of interesting things that we can apply this to. So lastly, we used, in that level 10 meeting, it's not for building out those processes. It's for identifying them. So what will happen is you will derail an entire meeting if you don't actually just give it 5 minutes per issue or so. And then if it is more than 5 minutes to solve that problem, you have to give it its own time. So that's what we call the discovery session. Discovery session is to suss out more information, learn about it. And the foundational Friday was to actually build the process. So that's what that Asana sheet looked like. So that was actually built during a foundational Friday. And so our team, every one of those members sits in a room. We already know what our objective is, and we put 90 minutes on the clock, and we get after that single thing. Does that make sense? So, what does process equal in my life? So, process equals I have a lot less pain and suffering mentally as I think through what my business is doing. I have a lot less concern when my acquisitions guys are out buying houses because I'm clear on what it's doing. And this is a picture of my daughter Grace and my son Colin. And we are on the boat we purchased recently, and we're hanging out fishing and tubing and doing all kinds of crazy stuff that an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old with their mom and dad get to do. And process wasn't in itself this incredible thing, but process equaled freedom in my life. And I think that as you continue to look at these things, and it might be something that you continue to put, how you have 47 books on your bookshelf, but you haven't read any of them. And there's all that learning that's sitting there, but you haven't actually gone to it. That's what these processes are. Because ultimately, when we look at that, what does a business mean? A business means it runs without me, right? I'm in Nashville today. I'm in Cleveland this afternoon. I'm in Hawaii on Sunday. I'm in Honduras in about 3 weeks. I have a business that runs because we put the work in. And I really encourage you guys to think about what it looks like Think about what it looks like and what is your expectation of that business and what does it mean in your life. And then get after it. Define those things that you want it to be. Set the culture that you want it to be like. And make sure that it's intentional and make sure you actually enjoy it. And then go through those business, personal, and family and go do those things and build it to support that. Businesses are built to help us enjoy our life and the other people that are working them. So I want to make sure that don't just do something because you're doing it. Go do something because it's awesome and because you enjoy it. So in wrapping up here, I thank you again so much for having me here, and I have just thoroughly enjoyed this space and interactions briefly with Seth, and I'm just sad I didn't leave more time to come hang out in the studio. But if you want to connect with me, Facebook is the best place to do it. You can see our website here, bridgeturnkey.com. And Nathan at bridgeturnkey.com is my email. And then Nathan Brooks, real estate investor. And this is my Facebook profile for the public page. And thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you having
it's
me.
awesome. Let's give it up for Nathan. This is a microphone. It's really cool. What's that? This is a microphone that you throw. So, hey, we've got a little time for Q&A, and I want to start with a question for you. In case you guys haven't been here before, this is literally a microphone. If you have a question, we throw it at you, and you catch it, and you talk in it. So the people online can hear, and so everybody else in the room can hear. So my first question for you, Nathan, is as it relates to I love that you brought up the Gino Wickman, the visionary integrator. How did you kind of go about finding that for yourself?
So I got incredibly lucky. I just got lucky. So I met my business partner on this website called realestatemingle.com.
I'm going there right now.
Otherwise known as Bigger Pockets. And
Yeah, exactly.
you like the pause.
Nice.
And so I had worked with a number of different JV partners over a couple of years, and my partner David we just happened to connect via Bigger Pockets. He flew out to town with his wife, and we just hung out and just had an instant bond, instant connection. And I just got lucky, man. And he's incredibly smart, and he's incredibly talented in that integrator seat. And so the cool part is, as we've had an integrator in that, now we can explain what it is to someone else in that director of operations role as we're hiring it. But if you don't have that, it's really important to start understanding, and you can use your CPA, you can use your attorney in some of the things where you're like, hey, where am I weak? And it's what's called a SWOT analysis. And you can literally do that. What are my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And what are those things in my business that give that? And then that could create and fuel that understanding to go hire that person.
Okay. And one last question, then I'm going to open it up to the room. But what's your workout team, man? You look good.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
P90X?
So I literally do train MMA every week.
Okay.
So we train at a Glory in Lee Summit. There are 4 or 5 UFC fighters in the gym, literally. And I have a personal coach as well who should be in the UFC anytime. And so I train 4 or 5 days a week, MMA, wrestling, jiu-jitsu.
I will not make you angry. Any questions for Nathan? We got Billy over here. Ready?
Good throw. Nathan, fantastic. Love Kansas City. One of my favorite barbecue places is there. I got a question related to the 2009 to 2015 range. Can you kind of share some insights into that? Because it sounds like that was the wilderness period that you went through. And then can you also share into what would you do now or share with people, besides obviously this amount of detail, that would go back and shorten that time frame from 6 years to less to be able to get to where you are now with your systems and all that?
Great question. And what's your favorite barbecue place?
It is Oklahoma Joe's.
Mine too. It's about 2 minutes from my office, but believe it or not.
Isn't that very confusing though? Oklahoma Joe's in Kansas City.
They actually changed it from Oklahoma Joe's to Joe's Kansas City. I don't understand why. It's so stupid. But anyway, so to your question, so two-part, it was the wilderness. I honestly think that the visionary personality is a blessing and a curse. We have a lot of ideas and we have a lot of things that we want to go after, and it's so fun, and I like projects and I like doing stuff. And I think that the biggest challenge for me was that I had too many projects. Is that squirrel syndrome, shiny object syndrome, and just after all these different things, instead of just being focused and relentless on one. And it's not that you can't go after all those other things. You absolutely can. You just can't do them all at once. And so, I think for me is if you're having that experience right now, or in the wilderness piece, and you're not having success, you probably have too many things that you're chasing. And it's so vitally important. And once we did that, I'm telling you what, it changed fundamentally in our business, because we were always good at buying houses. It wasn't really that hard. We raised a bunch of money. We always have had a great client. We've taken good care of them, but we were still all over the place, in that property management, in flipping retail houses. And again, it's not that we can't go do that, but we had to decide which one are we going to do and which one are we going to focus on. And then the second piece is, I think, I don't remember in 2009 or 2008 when I was trying to learn, but now we have incredible resources. So there's a bunch of amazing podcasts, bunch of amazing books, bunch of amazing meetups, bunch of amazing masterminds. And so for the learning piece, I think if you can afford it, having a coach or a mentor is huge. I think, for our business, we joined a mastermind. It was just absolute like gasoline to our business, because we could be around like-minded people. And so I think, to me, it's the learning. So having a clear objective, having mentoring, coaching, or even if you're not paying for that, but have a group of people that are doing it in a couple of varying levels, and then come back every week, every day, to what your goals are, and make sure that the things that you're doing, I think about this as like a line. If you can imagine a line, so if this direction is where I want to be, so this is my goal of 100 houses or whatever, but the things that I'm doing, I'm going in this line, so I'm still jacking around with property management, I'm messing with retail flips or whatever. The further I've traveled here, the further I have to travel back to travel this way. And so the least you can travel in the wrong direction, the better. So I don't know if that's enough answer for you, but that's what I would do.
Yeah, and follow up to that, because that was a great question, but how have you gone about, because I've had various business coaches, how have you found the best way to connect and identify the right coaches to work with?
Well, I think that at first it's in the you don't know what you don't know, and you have to, so the more homework you did up front to understand who you are and what you want. So you can use disc profile, you can use culture index, you can go through the things that require self-work. Tony Robbins' Unlimited Power is a wonderful book. I probably named like 25 books, so I'm sorry for your Audible account. That's an incredible book, and kind of dealing with the internal, because I think a lot of times we don't deal with this problem. And again, I'm not perfect, but I work on this a lot. I listen to 2 or 3 books a month at least, and I listen to podcasts all the time because I want to work on this. And so first we work on this. And then I think we approach and we can have a little bit less fear of our own inadequacies. And then again, culturally we're clear, and you can interview coaches or you can interview mentors. You can go to those meetups like this and connect with people who are doing bigger things. And so I think having a real conversation. So for instance, if you really want to do wholesaling at a big level, don't go have a mentor who has a business like mine. It's not going to help you solve that problem. You want somebody who's a really great wholesaler who understands what that looks like. And think about it. The clearer your vision, the clearer you know who you are actually looking for. And I'll tell you, I was living in Naples, Florida for 7 years. And I had a mentor named Rob, and I've written about him. I've talked about him a lot. But Rob had this incredible business, and he still does to this day. He's probably out racing Porsches right now. He's early 40s, retired. And I finally got him to sit down with me. And I was like, well, dude, I'm going to pay for your lunch. I'm like, now I understand. It's a different problem. So I appreciated his time. I finally got him to come to lunch, and he laid out his business, and he talked about the legs of his stool for his business. And I finally could see it. And so now, the clearer you can see it, now you know where to go after it. And he was like, well, yeah, I have property management, I have brokerage, I have, all these things in his business. And I was talking to him maybe 6 or 9 months ago, and I still talk to him all the time, almost 10 years later. Not all the time. I talk to him and as a mentor and friend, and he's like, Nathan, why are you calling me? Your business is bigger than mine. You have more employees than I do. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. So it actually happens, right? He got to actually spend that time with me and show me. And I think we naturally know, right? We can feel when somebody, you have to be very careful when it's somebody who you're paying money to, because you want to first understand that they have your best interest in mind and that you are culturally aligned together too.
That's good. A question over here? Yeah.
You kind of touched on a lot of it from when I was going to ask earlier, but I have a hard time with wanting to pursue so many different things. How have you just used the term of legs of a stool? Mm-hmm. How do you kind of sit down and divide the difference between these are legs of the same stool and these are different stools altogether? Like, does that make sense? How do you, like, for me, I kind of have an overall arching vision of where I want the company to go. Mm-hmm. And it feels like these are different legs of the same stool. How do you identify that it's got a consistent vision as opposed to being pulled in multiple ways?
Perfect.
It seems like in your Asana, you still have like a wholesaling, process. You have a turnkey buy, a turnkey sell. You have a bunch of different things. So how do you do that?
Great question. So I'll give the example of the legs to the stool versus the stools. So legs to the stool would be, in my business, we are currently a turnkey company, and we generate short-term revenue by buying, renovating, and selling houses, flipping houses, right? So that's a leg of the stool. Another leg of that stool is our meetup, right? So the meetup, it helps us building wealth and freedom through real estate. So that's our mission as a company. So flipping houses helps us build, as well as our clients. So does that fit with our mission? We own rentals, building wealth and freedom through real estate. That also fits in that stool, right? So those legs make sense and are congruent with our mission as a company. So when you look at yours, and the thing is when you solve one, now you can go put your whole self into the other, versus halfway in one, halfway in the other, not really solving both at the same time. So I want to own a vineyard, and it'll be called Brooks Estate, and it'll be in the west coast of California or somewhere. I like Paso Robles. I like Sonoma. I'm a big wine guy. I want to own it. I know what the bottle looks like. I know what it's going to taste like. I know what kind of steak I'm going to serve it with. That's a different stool, right? So it's income, but it's a totally different stool. Make sense? Anybody else? Sir.
I hope I didn't miss this question because I was dealing with, I'm an insurance agent, I had a claim, so it's been a busy night. So my question for you really gets to, how do you build or figure out how to buy 70 to 300 properties? What was your sequence, or how did you go through the functionality, since it was all on a processes basis, but how did you, besides the lending part, how did you figure out how to buy 70 properties, then 300? What was your market trend, or what were you looking at exactly for specific rentals to first get into to get to where you're flipping now? Does that make sense?
I think so. So let me rephrase it to you so I make sure. So what was the progression like to be able to go from buying a few houses to buying a lot of houses? Is that perfect? So First of all, it was understanding the criteria, and I hit on that a little bit, I think, earlier, but understanding the criteria, and I'm very big on this in my business, which is faster to yes and faster to no. Does that make sense to you guys? So I want to be faster to yes, but I also want to be faster to no, because maybe doesn't help. Maybe it's just stuck in the middle, right? So if we know clear what our actual goal is, then we can be clear either direction. And so what we did was we started, it was first me buying houses, and it was just me. And then it was me and another acquisitions person. And so what we started doing was we realized that we had to create a clear funnel for leads to come in. So we have our own email and system that comes inbound leads. And we actually worked on doing some wholesaling. We also hate doing it and are not very good at it. And so instead, we made a decision to build realtor relationships, build wholesaler relationships, and we're known in the city for being the best, fastest buyer in KC. So we can buy it, we'll be there. And now I have 2 full-time acquisitions people. And so instead of me having to go and do that, and now that takes me sitting from my CEO seat into a job seat, right? Do you see the difference? So I'm running a job in my business. And so to teaching them, and that takes a lot of time. So it's taken 6 to 9 months for each of those employees to really understand what that looks like, because there's a lot of nuance in buying houses. But the clearer we are on the general terms, so we did that same kind of analysis for those properties. So these are the areas we buy. These are the zip codes we buy. This is the ARV. And then in the back end of our Podio system, we also have what we call the workup. So literally in 60 seconds, you can plug in all the information of that property. So here's our purchase price, here's the rents, here's the whatever, and we look at 3 calculuses. So this is really important. We look at the all-in ARV, LTV to ARV. So we want to know what our all-in is. Second, we look at our return on capital. So just because we're making 20 grand doesn't mean it's good, or just because we're making 50 grand doesn't mean it's good. So what is our actual return on capital? And then third, what is our construction to our return on capital? So this is an interesting one. So I learned about this in my mastermind, and one of the guys was talking about it. So imagine the example, and I'm sure you have these houses here too. So in KC, we have a neighborhood called Hyde Park, and they have these amazing century homes, right? That are these 3-story, beautiful kind of manor type properties, but they are prototypical, don't have Romex, so you're gonna have to tear everything out and rerun all the electrical. It's typically a plaster house, so you're either gonna have to do serious plaster work or tear it all out. And so we knew that, hey, we can't really buy this property and expect to make a lot. So we looked at the actual cost of construction, which would be much, much, much higher in that. So if we were expecting to make $20,000 on the $20,000 renovation, that's awesome. But if it was anything below 50% of that, so if we were expecting to make 25 grand and it was a 50,000 rehab, that was where the line was. Does that make sense? So we can look at the metrics that fast, and then we see the return on capital of that property as well, both for us and for the client.
Just a follow-up question.
Yep.
Kind of did your own property management at one point while you're process, right?
Yep.
So when you were first starting out, say you had 10 or 20 properties, what was the threshold where you would, if you didn't have my own, I own my own business, so I would never manage the property. So what would be the threshold where you would hand it off to someone?
So the question's what number of properties would you turn over from self-managing to professional property management if you didn't have it in your office? As soon as possible. And I don't just say that. I did manage mine early on. I'm about as good of a property manager as I am at processes. I don't enjoy getting a phone call about your toilet on Sunday afternoon. It's not what I want to deal with. I want somebody who's professional. They have those systems built. They have those processes built. So, I know people, even in my office, we encourage people to invest in real estate outside of our company. And we have people who do still self-manage. But I would just do it as soon as possible. I ask this question: what problem do you want to solve? Do you want to become a great property manager, or do you want to become a great investor? I can tell you which one I want to be. Thank you. Anybody else? Sir.
So thank you for coming out here to visit with us today in Nashville, dropping some knowledge bombs.
Thank you.
I get your vision, what you're working on. My question is a little bit of a trick question. I'm working on a project where I'm working, it'll probably start out as a book, but I'm curious what, the name of the book will be Entrepreneurs, What They Teach Their Kids. And I'm curious, your kids in the photos look like they're middle school age maybe. Is there anything you've done intentionally to teach them, maybe show them what you're working on? And obviously age specific, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what entrepreneurs teach their kids.
100%. And I love that. And it's so vitally important. And so I don't have that picture, but I should put it in my future presentation. So I have a picture of my son, probably age, 2, in the middle of this kitchen that we demoed and putting in the flooring and everything. And from an early age, we've just talked about it. We've talked about money differently, and we've talked about what we do as a family. And we also just talk about the importance of understanding and working on something. And so whatever it is, my son, I'm teaching him how to shoot a rifle right now, and he, all the steps to go through, what are the safety things, and we talk about the same thing about money and how, just talk about it with him. Because my parents really never talked about money. They were afraid of money. And to use another 48th book example, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, my dad's 100% wonderful human being, but he's definitely that poor dad mentality. And he worked for 30 years and he lives well, right? And he retired well, but that was not what I wanted. And so I'm trying to just talk about that as often as possible with as much context as possible. And our kids now literally, hey, Dad, you want to buy that building? They see a sale sign and they're like, we should go buy that. And so they're 8 and 5, and so that's just normal. This is buying houses. So, and I like that. And just like speaking or like understanding P&L statements or training MMA, something that becomes normal becomes simple. And the simpler we can make it, the easier we can do it. So I want to make it simple and understandable for them and just talk about it as much as possible and give them real life experience in it. And my goal is that, not my goal, I will begin when they're 10, every year we're going to buy 2 houses. So by the time each of those kids are 18, 19, 20, they'll have their own portfolio. They'll have $1 million plus in real estate. And they will be able to have a different opportunity. It's not going to be given to them. They're going to have to earn it. But that's how we're going to go about so that they have something to start with and a seed for the future.
One more question? 2? Okay, here we go. Oh, I did that on purpose.
You did great.
Good job, Michael. Thanks so much, Nathan, for coming out. One of the things I loved about your presentation that I have not heard another entrepreneur speak about before is the investment that you're giving back to your staff and the encouragement that you have in helping them to build their wealth through real estate investing. So tell me more about like how you see your employees, because that's sometimes, I don't have a fully formed business yet, but as I think about someday getting to that place, I think I don't want to be the person that enslaves people trading their time for money, so that's a lot of the mindset stuff that, you hear in podcasts. Why would I want to do that to someone else? Like, wouldn't it be my goal to eventually have them fly the nest and start their own business? And how do you think about that? Can you share more about your thoughts as a business owner and how you see your employees?
Wonderful question. I'm a self-described terrible employee. I am a horrible employee, and I've worked for several organizations, including several churches, and I am a horrible employee. And I know that because I hate having other people who tell me what to do, and I hate not being able to just go fix something and do it what I want. And I know that not everybody's like that. And for instance, my marketing director, Abby, she's amazing. She's incredibly talented. She could totally build her own business. She wants nothing to do with that. And she wants to work for a great company that actually loves and cares for her. And we actually use that language. And we love and care for our people. We actually want them to be successful. We want them to have opportunity. And so I think that ultimately, when you think about it, not everybody wants to run that business, and they don't want to have those headaches. They don't want to have the months where you don't get paid. They don't want to have the suffering with it. And to me, it's just a matter of saying, who are we? Who are we called to be? And then who do we want to do life with? And so I wouldn't say no fear. I do have some fear around, we have an amazing team now, and people, leaving and running and starting their own business. And I'm sure there will be some that do. And I wish them ultimate success in that decision. But I also wanted to figure out, and I think we're onto something. I wouldn't say we have it solved, but what's a culture in a business that people want to be like? I think of a Kansas City business, Hallmark, where when people originally worked for Hallmark, J.C. Home literally would go and talk to people, and they loved working for him because he was an incredible entrepreneur and an incredible businessman, but also an incredible person who loved on his people and took care of them. And so to me, it's like we have a bigger opportunity than what it is that just Nathan can do or just David can do. And we attract the people who want to get after it from a team perspective. And we talk about team a lot. I don't really use the word employees very often. And we talk about that team, and we talk about what those goals are. And ultimately, when we lay that out, I'm not sure how many of those guys, and I'm not sure either way, and I don't really care, but would they go and build a multi-million-dollar portfolio on their own? And my guess is no. But if they want to stick around and hang out and build something pretty amazing, and oh, by the way, as a part of this, you also get to have an amazing portion of real estate too. And so I think that was kind of the draw as we were able to be clear as a company who we are. Does that answer your question?
Hey, thanks for learning with us today on the show. We would love to meet you at one of our free monthly meetups in Middle Tennessee.
Hit the thumbs up button if you like the content. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss a thing on this channel.
Check out another awesome investing video here.